Okay, so imagine this. I'm Deborah, 26, living in this tiny city apartment I've worked my butt off to earn years of coding, late nights, ramen dinners, the whole grind. My dream, launching my own tech startup, a social app I call Sphere. For 2 years, every spare minute, every dollar went into it. And yeah, I thought my biggest challenge was funding. Until I realized my real struggle was way closer than I ever expected, right across the dinner table from my own family. So, picture this: my 26th birthday dinner. The restaurant was one of those places my parents loved, but honestly, I just tolerated. Dark wood everywhere, hushed voices, menus that didn't even list prices like, one meal here could cover my grocery bill for a month. And yeah, this was their choice for my birthday. Which, was supposed to be about me, right? But it felt more like a performance for them, not an actual celebration. My mom, Helen, was in full element. Perfectly styled silver blonde hair, laughing just a little too loudly at one of my dad's tired jokes. Richard, my father, leaned back in that practiced way. You know, like he was always on display. Manager of a luxury car dealership, always selling something. Maybe not cars, maybe just an image of himself. The only reason I even agreed to be there was my grandfather, Samuel. At 80, he's a real estate tycoon, built everything from nothing. And the thing about him, he doesn't need to show off. He just is sharp, perceptive, and somehow the only person in my family who actually saw me, unlike my parents, who wore their ambitions like costumes. Grandpa wore his success like an old, comfortable coat. There's a difference. Trust me. So, the evening starts predictably. My parents launch into their usual chatter, a recent trip to some wine region, my mom eyeing some property purely for its social clout, and my dad bragging about a big month at the dealership. I nod, smile politely, offer minimal input, and then they get around to my little project, my startup, Sphere. They ask with this casual, dismissive tone, like it's a lemonade stand or something. I give them the usual developments moving. Business plans in progress, still hunting for startup capital. And of course, the advice rolls in. It's a tough market, Deb, my dad says, swirling his wine. VCs are sharks. You need a solid, proven concept before they'll even look. And my mom, patting my hand, adds, presentation is everything. Dear, a good address doesn't hurt. I bite back the urge to tell them the code and the business model matter way more than the zip code of my office, which, let's be real, is my spare bedroom. It's like talking to a wall. They live in this world of appearances. Me, I live in logic, code, plans the languages they can't speak. Grandpa, meanwhile, sits quietly, eyes piercing, observing everything. Slow sips of water, tiny hums here and there, never interrupting. But you can feel him processing everything. And then, just as the waiter clears our plates, he leans forward. Simple shift. But suddenly, everyone's attention is on him. My parents stop mid-sentence. Grandpa looks at me directly, and you can just feel the room tighten. And then this smile, warm, real, genuine. He says, quietly, Deborah, I'm so proud of your drive. Building something from scratch takes grit. Your grandmother would have admired that. My chest. It warms. Thanks, Grandpa. I'm trying. I manage. And then he leans in a little closer, like sharing a secret just between us. His voice lowers, conspiratorial, eyes twinkling. And here's the weird part. So, how's the company doing with the startup capital I sent you? I freeze. Wait, what? The startup capital? I blink. I try to process. My brain cycling through every possibility: a test, a joke, a hypothetical. I try to speak. But my mouth feels like cotton. Small shake of my head. Whisper barely audible. What startup capital? And the twinkle in his eyes flickers, confusion creeping in. He tilts his head, studying me, expecting maybe excitement, a progress report, a thank you. Nothing. The silence stretches, heavy. My parents, they're frozen, silverware suspended midair. My mom's smile is brittle. My dad looks like a deer in headlights, fork softly clattering against his plate. And then the tension. It's like cinematic. Grandpa's gaze, sharp, moves from me to my parents. His face, once warm, now hardened. CEO level impassive. The warmth evaporates, replaced by this chill that cuts the ambient hum like a razor. He doesn't even look at me anymore. His eyes are on them. And then, that question. Then who took it? Dense silence, suffocating. Everything unspoken hanging in the air. My dad, the master talker, looks trapped, pale, mouth opening and closing, trying to form words. The suit that usually made him look powerful, now just a costume. Mom reacts differently. She hardens, tight smile, rigid posture. It's the defensive stance of someone whose entire life is built on a flawless facade, now threatened. She glares at him. Silent command, do something, fix this. But he's got nothing. And me, I feel like an observer in my own story. Yet right at the center, my grandfather's words echo the startup capital I sent you. It's a statement. He sent it for me, for my dream. And then the implications hit me, like a wave. 2 years scraping by, juggling side jobs, barely surviving, pouring heart and soul into Sphere. And all that time, money meant for me was gone. His gaze shifts between them. He's no longer the doting grandpa. He's the businessman smelling a breach of trust. And here, the tension is insane. Everything about that dinner, the appearances, the dismissive advice, it's all leading to this moment. And the hint, the tiny drop of suspense, something shocking, something that's about to completely upend the night is waiting right there, just on the tip of revelation. Okay, so here's where things get completely insane. I'm sitting at the table, trying to follow the conversation. When Grandpa leans in and says it, he asks, his voice calm but firm, eyes locked on mine. How's the company doing with the startup capital I sent you? And I freeze. My brain just shuts down. Wait, what capital? He sent me money, I'd been scraping by for 2 years, hustling every spare moment, barely paying my rent, selling things off just to keep the project alive, thinking the hardest part was getting funding. And now, suddenly, there's this statement in the air that flips everything on its head. My mouth feels thick, my throat dry, and I manage a tiny shake of the head. What startup capital? I whisper, barely audible. The twinkle in Grandpa's eyes falters, confusion flickering across his face. He leans back slightly, studying me, as if trying to figure out if I'm joking, or if I've lost my mind. And I realize this isn't about me messing up, or some misunderstanding on my part. It's about something way worse. The room is still. My parents, frozen mid-bite, silverware halfway to their mouths, look like statues caught in a storm they can't control. Dad's face, usually ruddy with confidence, is pale. His mouth opens and closes like a fish out of water. Mom's smile is brittle, edges tight, posture stiff. It's terrifying in a way I hadn't anticipated, and the silence stretches, thick, suffocating. I can hear my own heartbeat, fast and erratic, and I'm suddenly aware of every shallow breath they're taking. Grandpa's gaze shifts from me to them, slow and deliberate, and then the ice hits the room, the warmth that had been there, the polite laughter, the murmurs, the ambient hum, it's gone, replaced by this razor-sharp tension. He doesn't even glance at me anymore. His eyes are locked on them. Then who took it? He asks. Just like that. The question hangs there, heavier than any words could be. My dad's head jerks slightly, searching for an escape, any excuse, anything, but there's nothing. He's trapped. The expensive suit that usually signals power, it's nothing. Just fabric on a man who's completely exposed. My mother reacts differently. She hardens, spine straight, lips pressed together, eyes sharp, venomous, like a cobra ready to strike. Her frozen smile morphs into sheer panic. There's a silent command there, a warning to my dad, fix it, say something, do something. But he's paralyzed. I'm just sitting there, heart racing, trying to process this. And all at once I feel detached and hyper-aware, like I'm watching it all unfold from above my body. Grandpa's words echo the startup capital I sent you. For me, my dream, and all this time, it was gone. My stomach drops. My brain struggles to catch up. I remember the countless nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was cut out for this, questioning if I should give up and do something safe, corporate, conventional. And the cruel irony, the money I thought I didn't have was sitting in their hands, or at least had been. Their reactions, their panic, their frozen expressions, they tell me everything. The betrayal is real. I start piecing it together. Every missed opportunity, every small financial struggle, every encouraging comment that really wasn't encouragement at all. It all clicks. They weren't just indifferent, they were actively undermining me. And it's worse than I imagined. Grandpa's gaze is lethal now. Cold, analytical, no warmth. He's no longer the doting grandfather, the soft presence I'd leaned on all my life. He's a businessman smelling deceit, betrayal, and the room feels like it's shrinking around us. Dad starts stammering, words tumble out, weak, disjointed. We were holding it for her, for safekeeping. The market is volatile. We thought it best to invest it first, make it grow, before giving it to her. And it's pathetic. So weak. I can't even, my hands are shaking and my chest feels tight. I want to yell, but it's frozen in my throat. Grandpa leans back slightly, lets out this sharp, humorless laugh. A financial strategy, Richard. You couldn't strategize your way out of a paper bag. You invested it all in yourselves. Chair legs scrape against the polished floor. The sound is like a verdict being delivered. Final. Undeniable. He stands, tall, imposing, every ounce of authority radiating off him. The meal is over. He booms, throws a black credit card onto the table. Pay for it with this. It may be the last thing you ever get from me. And then, softening, he looks at me, gentle, sad. Even, Deborah, come with me. We are leaving. My legs shake, but I stand. I don't look at them. I can't. I feel their eyes burning into my back as I walk past. And it's like the silence they leave behind is filled with the weight of every lie, every deceit, every stolen dream. The ride back is quiet. The city lights blur past the car window. My mind is a storm. How could they do this? Why all the careful documentation, every late night coding, every ounce of my life poured into Sphere, and they treated it like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. We arrive at Grandpa's penthouse. He leads me into his study. Smells of leather, old books, a sanctuary. He pours us both a drink. "Drink this," he says gently, and it burns down my throat, steadying me, grounding me. He sits, patient, not pushing me to talk, just waiting for me to process. And I finally whisper it. "They've always been like this. I just never saw it." My voice cracks. It's true. My entire life, their love. It's always been conditional, transactional, tied to achievements they understand. Good grades, prestigious internships, the things they could brag about. But my startup, my choice to take a risk, to follow this dream, it's a source of shame to them. It wasn't worthy. It wasn't visible. It wasn't what mattered. Grandpa leans back, eyes heavy with disappointment. "Your father's desperate to keep up a lifestyle he can't afford. Your mother's obsessed with social standing. They saw a shortcut and they took it, stepping on you to prop themselves up. And suddenly, I see it, the whole picture. Their lives are a curated illusion. Every luxury, every fancy purchase, everything funded by the $250,000 meant for me." My hands shake as he opens a drawer and slides a folder toward me. Inside every credit card statement, every letter from collections, a lien notice against their house. They've been living on my money, bleeding my trust dry. And then, there it is, the joint account. The one Grandpa had set up as a trust for me. 6 months ago, $250,000 deposit. What follows? A sickening series of withdrawals. Transfers to Dad's account, credit cards, the Hamptons down payment. Less than $500 left. My stomach churns. Nausea hits. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't incompetence. This was deliberate, cold betrayal. And there's more. Grandpa explains the one gamble they took $75,000 on a high-risk tech stock. Crashed. Gone. They didn't just steal from me, they squandered part of it, gambling my future away. I can't help but let out a bitter laugh, disbelief mingled with rage. I stare at the folder. Every late night, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt I had about myself. They took it all, twisted it into their own survival, their own facade. My mind is racing. Shock, confusion, disbelief, and somewhere deep down, the start of a hard, cold resolve. I'm not a victim here, not anymore. And Grandpa, that flicker of his old twinkle returns. Not warmth this time, but something sharper. Dangerous. "They took your money and lied to my face," he growls. "We don't get mad. Deborah, we get everything." And just like that, it all clicks. The betrayal, the loss, the shock. It's the beginning of something else. Something that will take strategy, focus, and every bit of cleverness I've got. But the first moment, the raw, emotional core of realization is here. The $250,000 is gone. My dream was stolen, and I'm seeing it fully for the first time. So we're in Grandpa's study now, and I'm staring at this folder, just frozen for a moment. He slides it closer, and I start flipping through the pages. Credit card statements, letters from collection agencies, liens against their house. It's staggering. Every luxury purchase I thought they earned, not even close. It was my money, my future. The car, the renovations, the Hampton House down payment they drained the trust account I thought was safe. And then I see it the pattern, not random, not careless. Every withdrawal lined up with some extravagant indulgence, some risky play to maintain this perfect facade. It hits me. Like a punch to the gut, they weren't just careless or greedy. They were actively sabotaging me. Every moment of struggle I endured, every night I spent coding while worrying about rent. It wasn't just chance they wanted me dependent, trapped, struggling. I feel my stomach tighten, anger bubbling under this cold clarity. Grandpa leans back, silent, letting me absorb it all. Then he points to a section of the folder. $75,000 wired to some high-risk tech stock. And of course, it crashed. Gone. Just like that. I can't even laugh. It's too absurd. Too cruel. My parents not only stole my future, they gambled part of it on a long shot. And all the while, I'm piecing it together. Every seemingly innocent comment, every so-called advice, it was cover. Every time they suggested I consider a real job or joked about my startup being a hobby, it was part of the plan. To keep me small, insecure, tethered. I feel a bitter laugh escape me, disbelief mixing with rage. Grandpa doesn't interrupt. He just watches, steady, letting the anger and clarity settle. And here's the thing I realize, now that I'm not imagining it. The scope, the calculation, the audacity, it's all there. They systematically dismantled my dream while pretending to care. The folder feels heavier in my hands than any weight I've carried in years. And yet, amidst the shock, there's a strange clarity. I know exactly what they did, how they did it, and most importantly, that I can expose it. Grandpa leans forward, voice low and steady. It's all here, Deb. Every transaction, every lie, every gamble. They've built a house of cards on your back. I nod, gripping the folder. My hands are trembling, but not from fear. It's fury. Pure, focused fury. And yeah, a little disbelief that human beings could be this selfish, this short-sighted. We go through the remaining pages' emails between them. Conversations about spending the money, online receipts for furniture, designer bags, art, even vacations. And the connections are crystal clear. The date of a luxury shopping spree matches a withdrawal. The stock purchase, recorded and lost. My head is spinning. Part of me wants to scream. Part of me wants to cry. But mostly, I feel this sharp, precise anger. It's focused. I can see the end of the story clearly now. And Grandpa, he leans back, takes a slow sip of his drink, and just nods. He doesn't need to say much. His silence says it all. The betrayal is deep, and the path to correcting it has to be meticulous. I look down at the folder again and take a breath, trying to steady myself. It's overwhelming, yes, but it's also empowering. For 2 years, I struggled thinking the hardest part was finding investors, raising funds, all that stress, all those sleepless nights, all the doubt I felt. It wasn't because I wasn't capable. It was because they deliberately kept me from my resources, siphoning away what was mine, and now I see it, fully. Every misstep, every excuse they made, it's documented, undeniable. I feel my chest tighten again, not with fear, but with purpose. Grandpa finally speaks again, Slow, deliberate. This isn't just a theft of money, Deb. It's an attempt to control your life, your future. But it's visible now. All of it. Nothing is hidden. And he's right. I see it. Every piece of evidence is a puzzle, each part connecting to the next, revealing a picture of deliberate sabotage. And here's the weird part. I'm not just angry anymore. I'm clear. Every emotion, every late night, every little sacrifice I made, it's fuel now. And that clarity, that cold, burning understanding of what they've done, it's transforming. The rage is strategic, controlled, focused. We spend hours in that study, cross-referencing, connecting dots, establishing a timeline of every withdrawal, every reckless investment, every deliberate act that undermined me. And through it all, I feel this steady sense of purpose building. This is bigger than money. It's about justice. It's about reclaiming what they tried to steal, about making sure they can't just walk away from this. By the end, my hands are sore from flipping pages, my eyes raw from reading the audacity of it all. But I feel ready to take the next step, ready to turn this betrayal into something I can fight with, something that's mine to control. And even though the anger is hot, it's precise now, sharp. I can see a path forward, and it's clear, it's cold, and it's mine. The next morning, I called Ben. I knew he was the only one who could help me make sense of this digital mess. Ben and I go way back college coding nights, way too much coffee, arguing over algorithms at 2 a.m., so I knew he'd get it. I told him everything. The dinner, the missing $250,000, the folder of documents Grandpa had handed me. And Ben, well, he listened, just listening at first. Then his expression changed. Sympathy gave way to this sharp, analytical focus, like he'd switched into cyber detective mode. "Wait, let me get this straight," he said, leaning forward, eyes narrowing. "They stole your startup fund, blew some on a luxury car, a house, and then gambled part of it." "Yeah," I muttered, sipping my coffee, hands still a little shaky. He leaned back and rubbed his chin. Slow, thoughtful. "Okay, we can track this. We can map it all." So we set it up. My tiny apartment became a command center, laptops partitioned, encrypted drives lined up, a pizza box in the corner, caffeine fueling us like some grim ritual. Ben worked fast, almost hypnotically, diving into the family cloud, emails, old backups. And here's the thing, it was worse than I imagined. Every message, every receipt, every casual note about spending or investments was there, waiting to be uncovered. He dug through emails first. Messages between them, right after Grandpa had wired the money, made it crystal clear they weren't investing it for me. They were celebrating, planning, scheming. My mom's emails to contractors about kitchen renovations. My dad's notes on the Hampton house down payment. I could hardly believe it. And then the texts, deleted messages recovered by Ben. My parents texting each other about the account running low, blaming each other, and even tossing around lines like, "Just tell her to get a real job." My stomach twisted. That was the moment it hit me. They weren't just lying. They were actively trying to see me fail. Every doubt I'd had about my ability, my project, it was manufactured, manipulated by them. I felt anger, but also a sharp clarity. We cross-referenced the receipts, the withdrawals from the account, the stock transfers. Every dot connected perfectly. And the thrill of the hunt, yeah. It was there too. It felt almost like a puzzle, a dark, twisted puzzle. but satisfying in the sense that I was uncovering the full picture. Ben moved through the digital trail like a pro, explaining things as he went. But without sugarcoating, each discovery, each link we confirmed, was another layer of evidence, another nail in the coffin of their deception. And me, I was no longer just shocked. I was focused, methodical, almost cold in my resolve. Each screenshot, each message, each online receipt was a piece of the story, a story of betrayal and audacity, and we were reconstructing it pixel by pixel, date by date. By the time we were done, the folder of digital evidence was massive emails, texts, receipts, browser histories, even deleted content. It was airtight. Ben looked at me and said, almost quietly, "Deb, this isn't just proof. This is their confession." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, and I realized, yeah, he was right. Every lie, every deception, every attempt to control or sabotage me, it was all documented, all undeniable. And here's the thing, I wasn't frozen anymore. I wasn't floundering in shock. I felt purpose, a cold, clear purpose. This wasn't just about money. It was about justice. It was about taking control of the narrative, reclaiming what was mine, and finally exposing the truth. We spent hours in that apartment, digging, verifying, cataloging, piecing together a timeline of betrayal so precise it was almost surgical. And as the night went on, a weird mix of adrenaline, fury, and satisfaction washed over me. I felt empowered. We finished, leaning back, exhausted, the room littered with empty coffee cups and pizza boxes. Ben, smirking slightly, said, "All right, Deb, this is it. This is everything you need to take the next step." And I looked at that encrypted file on the screen, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control, clarity, purpose. The shock of betrayal was still there, lingering like a shadow, but now it was harnessed, focused, and it would fuel what came next. We dove in deeper, Ben and I, and oh man, it was brutal. Every click, every recovered file, it painted the same picture. My parents weren't just careless, they were deliberate. Emails first. My dad writing to my mom about the joint account, telling her how to move the money around, planning the car purchase, the Hampton house down payment. And my mom. She was just as bad. Notes to contractors, receipts for designer handbags, expensive shoes, art for their newly renovated living room. It was all there. Dates, amounts, perfectly matching the withdrawals from the account. I remember leaning back, almost trying to step away from it, but couldn't. It was like watching the full scope of betrayal unfold in real time. And then the texts. Oh wow, the texts. Deleted ones, recovered by Ben. Lines like, "The account is almost empty." And my mom snapping back, "This is your fault, Richard." And then, get this, the kicker. "Just tell her to get a real job." My jaw literally dropped. All the times they subtly suggested I should give up on Sphere. All those little digs, they weren't concern. It was manipulation. Calculated, I felt my chest tighten, a mix of anger and disbelief swirling together. Ben and I cross-referenced everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, even browser history. My dad's frantic searches for penny stocks, get-rich-quick schemes, how to cover losses without losing the house. It was pathetic. But it also explained a lot. And it was all linked to the money Grandpa had sent. Each piece, when you lined it up, formed this undeniable chain transfer. purchase, gamble, withdrawal. I remember muttering, almost to myself, they planned this, every step. And here's the thing, the more I saw, the more furious I got. But there was this shift too, like clarity cutting through shock. I wasn't just shocked anymore. I knew exactly what they'd done and what I had to do. We kept going, digging through cloud backups, archived emails, receipts. It was relentless, exhausting. But every click, every found file made the picture sharper. My parents hadn't just taken the money, they dismantled my project from the inside. They treated my future like it was collateral, disposable. And the rage that hit me then, it was hot, but focused. I wasn't spiraling. I was strategizing. Every message, every transaction, every text, it was ammunition. Evidence that could not be ignored. Ben looked at me at one point. Slow grin spreading across his face, eyes gleaming. Deb, this is airtight. This isn't just proof. This is a confession. And he was right. It wasn't hypothetical. It wasn't circumstantial. It was literal documentation of every selfish, calculated move. I remember pausing, taking a breath, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something else besides shock and anger. Purpose. Cold. Precise purpose. This wasn't about revenge yet. Not exactly. It was about reclaiming what was mine and ensuring that the truth came out. We spent hours, sometimes, barely speaking, cataloging everything, organizing it into a file so clean, so detailed, that there would be no doubt about the theft. No way for them to wiggle out of it. And I could feel it. This sense of power returning to me. Like, yeah, they tried to bury me under lies, under manipulation, but here I was, uncovering it all, every last deceit. The magnitude was staggering: emails, texts, receipts, browser history, even deleted files. They all painted the same damning story. And through it all, I was calm, almost clinical. Not because I didn't feel anything, trust me. I did, but because I realized that clarity was my weapon. Anger fueled me. Yes, but it was focused, not blind. And by the time we finished that night, leaning back in my tiny apartment, surrounded by empty coffee cups and the lingering hum of computers, the evidence was complete. Every single dollar, every intentional move, every text and email that showed premeditation, it was all compiled, cross-referenced, time-stamped, unbreakable. I stared at that folder, feeling a strange mix of disbelief and validation. They hadn't just made a mistake. They'd orchestrated a long-term plan to take from me, to sabotage me, and I had proof. Proof I could hold, proof that changed everything. And in that moment, I knew the next step was inevitable. I wasn't frozen anymore. Shock had given way to action. Purpose had taken over. And yeah, it was terrifying, but also oddly empowering. I'd taken the chaos of betrayal and I was turning it into clarity, into something I could act on. Something that could finally hold them accountable. So, I took the USB drive, the one with every bit of proof Ben and I had gathered, and headed straight to Grandpa's penthouse. I remember gripping it like a lifeline, my hands shaking a little. Not from fear exactly, but from the weight of everything. Walking into his study. The air was thick, serious. He was there, reviewing stacks of documents, the kind of place that smelled like old books and leather. You know, power and history mixed together. I set the drive down on his desk, plugged it into his laptop, and we went through it. Every email, every text, every online receipt. He didn't say much at first, just watched, expression unreadable, a muscle twitching in his jaw as each piece of evidence unfolded. And I kept thinking, okay, so this is it. This is all there, right? The confirmation that my parents had taken the money, spent it, gambled it away. Every move documented, undeniable. And Grandpa, he was silent for a long time, just absorbing it, letting it sink in. Then he looked at me, his eyes no longer soft, not the grandfatherly warmth I'd known, but sharp, focused. Something had shifted. It wasn't about comfort anymore. It was about strategy. I could see it in the way he leaned back, that slight smirk that wasn't quite a smile, more like a predator sizing up a move. He said, low and deliberate, "They took your money and they lied to my face. They broke 2 cardinal rules. We don't get mad. Deborah." I blinked. Wait, what do we get? Everything. And in that moment, the purpose crystallized. I wasn't just angry. I was gearing up. We had proof. Every deceit, every selfish move, every text and receipt lined up perfectly. And now, it wasn't about emotion. It was about action. Grandpa started explaining the plan. And honestly, my head was spinning a little. He'd thought ahead, years ago, putting this morality clause in his will that could be triggered in cases of gross misconduct against a family member. And here we were, in this perfect storm of betrayal. He walked me through it slowly, because I think even he knew how huge this was. There were options, legal leverage, a board of executors, him as chairman, his lawyer, his financial advisor, my aunts, and my dad. And I had been thinking, okay, my aunts, they'd never vote against my dad. Right. But Grandpa knew better. He knew the depth of deceit, and he knew how grounded and just my aunts were. They'd see through the facade. And the best part, the brilliance, was in the setup. We'd call an emergency board meeting, ostensibly a review of annual performance, something boring and routine. My dad would walk in expecting charts, graphs, a snooze fest. My mom would be there under the guise of a family dinner afterward to witness everything. And then the morality clause, that lever of justice, would do the rest. He broke it down slowly, almost savoring the mental chess. My dad would be confronted with the evidence, emails, receipts, texts, browser histories, everything. The evidence was airtight like a noose. And then he would have 2 choices. Option A, full disinheritance, public, humiliating. Every family member, everyone of note would know. Option B, sign a confession and repayment agreement. Brutal terms. Sell the house, the car, the Hamptons down payment. Everything liquidated to pay me back with interest. Future inheritance pledged as collateral. Fail to pay, lose it all to me permanently. The poetic justice was almost dizzying. They had tried to take my future to fund their present. Now they would have to sacrifice their own future for the past. And Grandpa's calm, deliberate voice as he outlined it, it was chilling. He said with absolute certainty, "They will choose option B. Your father is a coward and your mother a socialite. They fear public shame more than poverty. They will sign." I remember just nodding, heart pounding, thinking, okay, this is meticulous. This isn't about revenge in some chaotic, emotional way. This is precise, methodical, unavoidable. It was almost cinematic, the way he described how the evidence would land, how the aunts would react, how the clause would be enforced. And me, in the corner, absorbing it all, feeling my pulse sync with the rhythm of the plan. We went through logistics too. Lawyer to draft the repayment and confession agreement. Date of the emergency meeting. Precise presentation of evidence. Sequencing of facts. Everything had to be airtight. Grandpa even had contingencies for potential pushback. Weak excuses, emotional pleas. Nothing would derail it. And I could feel my role in it crystallizing. 2. I wasn't just a witness. I was a symbol. I would present the evidence, remain neutral, controlled. An embodiment of the truth that would hit my parents like a sledgehammer. And yet, beneath it all, there was this current of anticipation, the kind that makes your stomach tight, your mind racing with scenarios. I mean, we'd collected all this evidence, yes, but the real power wasn't in the files themselves. It was in how it would land, how it would strip away their carefully curated illusion. Grandpa was deliberate, calculating, and watching me, gauging my reactions, making sure I understood the gravity. Every step had to be controlled, every reveal timed perfectly. And as we finished mapping out the strategy, I felt this weird mixture of fear and exhilaration. We were moving from discovery to action, from shock and anger to cold, calculated execution. And I realized I wasn't just reacting to what they did anymore. I was orchestrating a response, a dismantling of the lie they'd built around themselves. The tension was palpable, thick in the room. It was the quiet before a storm, before the confrontation that would change everything. And even though we were still planning, I can feel it, the inevitability of the upcoming showdown. The combination of evidence, legal leverage, and psychological insight into my parents' fears meant that nothing could stop it. It was precise, devastating, and in that moment, I finally understood the power of preparation. Grandpa leaned back, hands steepled, and said, almost softly, but firmly, "Now." We wait for the perfect moment, the board meeting, the evidence, the truth, and they will see the consequences of their choices. And I knew he was right. We had turned chaos into clarity, betrayal into strategy. Everything else, the fear, the anger, the uncertainty had transformed into focused purpose. And there was this thrill, almost, in the anticipation, knowing that in a few days, everything would come to light. The next steps were set, the pieces in motion, and I could feel the tension coiling tight in my chest, a mix of dread and excitement. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about restitution. It was about truth, about exposing what had been hidden for so long. And as I sat there, absorbing the scope of it, the reality hit me. The confrontation was coming, and there was no turning back. Every calculated step we had taken would land, and my parents would have to face the full weight of what they had done. And honestly, I couldn't wait. The day of the board meeting arrived, and wow, you could feel it in the air like something huge was about to happen. Grandpa had booked the main conference room at his corporate headquarters. Sterile, intimidating, polished mahogany table, panoramic city view. It felt less like a meeting and more like walking into a courtroom. I sat at the head of the table next to Grandpa, trying to steady myself. I wasn't just a witness, I was a reminder, a visible symbol of what had been taken from me. My aunts, Margaret and Elizabeth, arrived first. Margaret, all no-nonsense energy, and Elizabeth, calm but sharp, both clearly smart, grounded, the kind of people who don't suffer fools. They looked at me with mild confusion, wondering why I was here, but greeted me warmly. Then my parents walked in. Dad, Richard, in his best suit, all bluster, clearly expecting to play the savvy businessman role. But right away, I could see it just a flicker of unease when he noticed me. He tried to cover it with that fake confident smile, but you could see it faltering. Mom, Helen, dressed to the nines, like a walking ad for the life they'd been pretending to live, gave me that tight, artificial smile. So lovely. You could join us, dear. And I was thinking, oh, they have no idea. Lambs walking into a slaughterhouse. Grandpa didn't waste a single second on pleasantries. He started immediately, his voice commanding the room, resonant, cutting through the tension. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I've called this emergency meeting to address a matter of grave importance regarding the estate and the integrity of this family. We have a situation that falls under the morality clause of my will. And just like that, the mood shifted. My aunts exchanged alarmed glances. Dad's smile froze. He glanced nervously between Grandpa and me, realizing maybe this wasn't going to be the boring meeting he expected. Grandpa continued, deliberate, calm, and devastatingly precise. As you know, this clause allows for the disinheritance of any beneficiary found guilty of gross financial misconduct against another family member. Today, we will be discussing such a case, and then he turned to my father, and I swear you could feel the room holding its breath. Richard, Dad paled. Dad, what is this about? Instead of answering, Grandpa nodded to me, and so I stood. My legs were steady, though my stomach was doing flips. I walked to the head of the table, connected my laptop to the monitor, and the first image popped up the bank transfer confirmation. $250,000 from Grandpa's account to a joint account of Richard and Helen. Intended for my startup. Deposited 6 months ago, Grandpa announced calmly, but with force. I gifted Deborah this money to fund her company. She never received it. The money was deposited into an account controlled by Richard and Helen, who then proceeded to systematically drain it for their own personal use. There was an audible gasp. I mean, you could feel the shock ripple through the room. My aunts' faces were frozen in disbelief. Dad shot up, furious, panicked. This is an outrage. It's a misunderstanding. We were investing the money for her. Grandpa didn't even flinch. His voice cracked like a whip. Sit down, Richard. And just like that, Dad crumpled into his chair. The air was tense, heavy, almost tangible. Then I began the walkthrough, step by step, calm, detached, almost like a prosecutor laying out a case. Emails where they celebrated the windfall, texts planning luxury spending, credit card statements, receipts for the new car, renovations, the down payment on the Hampton house, and yes, Dad's catastrophic $75,000 penny stock gamble, each piece lined up, undeniable, unbroken. I can see it, their expressions shifting, horror washing over Mom's face as her private purchases and messages were displayed. Dad was sweating, darting his eyes, trying to find a loophole that didn't exist. My aunt's eyes narrowed, dawning disgust and disappointment on their faces. The digital breadcrumbs were a chain from Grandpa's generosity to their greed. Every piece of proof connecting, airtight, undeniable. And I sat back, letting it all sink in. The tension so thick you could almost slice it with a knife. Grandpa let the silence hang, savoring it. And then he spoke, calm but with lethal precision. The evidence is, as you can see, irrefutable. Richard, Helen, you have stolen from your own daughter. You have betrayed my trust and disgraced this family. And then Margaret spoke first, trembling with controlled rage. Richard, how could you? We all knew you had money problems. But this is monstrous, Dad pleaded, weak, voice cracking. We were going to pay her back. It was just a loan, Elizabeth shot back, furious. You let her struggle while you lived off her future. It's despicable. Mom finally broke, crying, hiding her face, the perfect facade gone. Grandpa held up a hand, commanding silence, authority radiating. The damage is done. Now we discuss the consequences. He slid 2 documents across the table. Option A, full disinheritance, public humiliation, complete loss of inheritance, shame absolute. Option B, a confession and repayment agreement, liquidating all assets. Full repayment with interest, future inheritance pledged as collateral. Live under this for the rest of your lives. The tension was electric. Dad stared, hands shaking, back and forth between the documents. Their faces, the looming reality of public disgrace. And you could see it, there was no real choice. The fear of shame, the weight of exposure made the decision inevitable. Dad, trembling, picked up the pen and signed the repayment agreement. Mom followed, her tears streaking her face. Messy, chaotic signatures. They had chosen their cage. Immediate consequences began that very week house for sale. Car repossessed. Hampton down payment forfeited. Jewelry, watches, anything of value liquidated. They were forced into a smaller apartment. Dad working evenings. Mom finding a job after decades. Humiliation became constant. Friends noticed. Whispers spread. Social circle abandoned them. A week later, the original $250,000 plus interest $285,000 was wired into my business account. Staring at that balance felt surreal. Vindication, closure, empowerment, justice, precise, swift, and irreversible. That meeting wasn't just about money. It was about exposing deceit, asserting the truth, and reclaiming the future that had been stolen. And sitting there, watching it all unfold, I realized something profound sometimes. The people who are supposed to support you can betray you. But if you prepare, if you act, the truth has its own way of prevailing. And man, it felt incredible after that intense board meeting. The fallout was brutal and immediate. Every asset my parents had acquired with my stolen funds was liquidated. The house they'd spent months renovating had a for sale sign out front within days. The luxury car repossessed. The Hampton down payment gone. Mom's jewelry. Dad's expensive watches. Every little indulgence, they were all stripped away, dismantling the lavish lifestyle they had built on my future. It was swift, it was surgical, and honestly, it felt kind of satisfying to watch them face the reality they had created. They were forced into a small, cramped rental in a less desirable part of town. Dad picked up a second job, evenings at a different dealership, hustling to make ends meet. Mom, after decades of staying home and social appearances, had to work as a receptionist at a dental office. The humiliation was constant, unavoidable. Their friends noticed the sudden collapse. Whispers followed them wherever they went. Vague excuses about bad investments and downsizing were offered, but nobody really bought it. Their social circle slowly evaporated, leaving them isolated, facing the consequences of their choices. Meanwhile, a week after everything, I received a notification that changed everything. $285,000 had been wired into my business account. The original $250,000 from Grandpa, plus interest. Staring at that number, I felt a rush of disbelief and elation all at once. It wasn't just money, it was validation, vindication, proof that the truth prevails. For the first time in 2 years, I could breathe, think strategically, and actually move forward without fear of financial sabotage. And, okay, that moment was surreal. I felt this intense mix of relief, pride, and almost disbelief that I had made it through the storm. With the capital secured, I finally started executing the plans I had been dreaming about for years. First step, hiring Ben as my CTO. I offered him a stake in the company too, knowing his loyalty and skill would be crucial. Then, we leased a small, modern office downtown and began assembling a talented team of developers and designers. Connectsphere, which had only existed on my laptop and in my mind, suddenly roared to life. Every long night of coding, every late night brainstorm, every painstaking line of development, it all mattered. The work was intense, challenging, and kind of exhausting, but it was joyous in a way I hadn't imagined. Each victory, each solved problem, each milestone completed felt like reclaiming a piece of the life my parents had tried to steal. Grandpa acted as a mentor throughout, offering advice on business strategy, networking, leadership, without ever bringing up what had happened with my parents again. For him, that chapter was closed. He trusted me to build, to move forward, and that trust was empowering. Fast forward 6 months, and we launched the beta version of connectsphere. The response was incredible. Users loved it. The interface was intuitive, the features innovative. Tech blogs picked up the story, framing it as a classic underdog tale, a young, bootstrapped founder creating something fresh and exciting. And here's the funny thing. Bootstrapped almost literally meant I was starting from scratch. But nobody needed to know the chaos behind the scenes. My relationship with my parents, it ended completely. They tried reaching out, sending guilt-laden texts, leaving tearful voicemails, talking about mistakes and wanting me back. But I didn't respond. Their apologies felt hollow, empty. They weren't sorry for what they had done to me. They were only sorry they got caught. They hadn't even acknowledged the years of struggle and stress they caused. The nights I spent wondering if I'd ever make it. Forgiveness wasn't an option. It wasn't earned. Over the next year, connectsphere continued to grow. We secured our first round of venture capital funding, putting the company's valuation in the millions. I stood in our bustling office, surrounded by an incredible team, watching the city lights through the window, and I realized I had built this. Not my parents, not their stolen money. Me. My resilience, my determination, my refusal to give up. The theft that had been meant to crush me ended up forging me into someone stronger. I'd learned a lesson that was harsh, unrelenting, but invaluable sometimes. The people who are supposed to support you are the very ones who will try to tear you down. But here's the thing they failed. I took their betrayal, their selfishness, and I used it as fuel. My dream, my startup, my identity, it survived, and it grew stronger than ever. And honestly, it was liberating. I had a new beginning, one that was entirely my own. No strings, no debts of gratitude, no hidden agendas. I had taken what was meant to be lost and transformed it into something real, tangible, powerful. Looking back now, I realize that success isn't just about talent or luck. It's about persistence, resilience, and the courage to fight for your own future, even when the people closest to you fail to see your worth. From the ashes of deceit and betrayal, I had risen stronger, wiser, and fully in control of my destiny. Connectsphere wasn't just a startup anymore. It was proof, a symbol of what can happen when you refuse to let others define your limits. And yeah, it's been a journey, messy, painful, but ultimately victorious. Every late night, every sacrifice, every ounce of grit, it all mattered. And it all led to this moment. And the best part, I knew that no one could take this from me again. Not my parents, not anyone else. I had earned it, fought for it, and now, finally, I was free to build exactly the life I wanted, on my own terms. And that feeling, wow, it's indescribable. Looking back, it's wild to think how far this journey went, from betrayal to taking control and building something that's truly mine. The lesson: resilience counts. Justice can take its course, and no one else gets to define your success. It's about turning obstacles into fuel and showing up for yourself. If this story resonated with you, stick around for more journeys like this. And yeah, consider hitting like or subscribing, it helps. But more than that, I hope it inspires you to own your path.